comparison. I texted it to Judd, but
okay.
there's about the quarterback thing.
Yeah. Let's there's a million places to go here today, but Pat, let's start by opening up the NBA standings here on December 7th. The Minnesota Timberwolves, what's their magic number to clinch the Western Conference? Dude, they are 16-4 and a 3-game lead over the second place team right now.
And the greatest strategy they ever had was to miss the play-in tournament, because last night they were not good. They weren't making their shots. Ant wasn't ready to roll after the injury, but they had San Antonio instead of somebody good, and they gave 15 straight losses for San Antonio now.
15 straight losses, and Greg Popovich, he was playing the second half of the fourth quarter without a point guard on the floor. I think there's some once the ball started rolling in the direction of 8 losses, 9 losses, I think Pop sees it clearly. Maybe we can get another number 1 pick.
You know what is amazing? He did that once before. He got David Robinson, and then later he got Tim Duncan. So, which was a really good tandem. And you know what's amazing is 15 in a row is not the longest active losing streak in the NBA. Detroit's 18 now.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, this is all the things that they've said about tanking and Silver and the guys and trying to come up with these. You can't get the number 1 draft choice 2 years in a row or something. There's still 5 of them dedicated to trying to get as many ping pong balls as they possibly can. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it's amazing.
Yeah, they were not that good last night. I just sit there, and if my fret about them is that Michael Conley is just not going to be able to play this much. He's age 37, and what happens if he misses 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of the one
Milton
big.
Is a joke. He's horrible. Get somebody else in here. He can't play. Every time he's on the floor, you're at a disadvantage. No matter who's out there with him, he makes the other team better than you. He is so god awful. But you got to try to play him, I guess, because they don't have anybody else. But he's terrible.
It is weird because he was not this bad when he was with Philadelphia, so I don't really know what's happening. But you're right. It's funny, in the 12 minutes he was on the court last night, the Wolves were a -12. In the 36 minutes that they were on the court without Shake Milton, the Wolves were a +20.
Yeah.
So he literally single-handedly shipwrecked that game in some way.
Just he runs around. I mean, I don't have anything against him personally. It's probably he'd spend his whole life being called Shake, I suppose. What the hell? But they knew they needed a backup point guard because Michael Conley's 37 years old, and then they thought McLaughlin was healthy and he could do it. I've never liked him that well anyway, but somewhere out there you got to go find somebody. And one of these tanking teams has got to have a point guard that you can get, don't they?
I'll give you one. Okay, there's a guy who happens to be playing for the lowly Washington Wizards right now with his expiring contract. You might know him. His name is Tyus. He's from Minnesota.
Oh, yes. Yes, now it's an expiring contract, so you wouldn't have to.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, oh, God, yes, that would be fantastic. It would be, maybe that'll happen, yeah.
So, he signed a 2-year, $29 million contract with the Grizzlies, and then I think he was included, was it in the Beal trade where there were teams cycling around? But, yeah, he is so this year it's a $14 million hit this year, so you'd have to find a way to match the prorated salaries in some form, but then you'd be a free agent. So
because they're just so much better with Conley on the court than with anybody else. But God, you're pushing them 28 minutes a game for a guy that age, and they've been lucky so far. But man, Gobert, it's amazing how this has worked out because
he's so good.
There was nobody
greatest trade ever.
There was nobody more off the hook than me saying, why did they make this trade? And now you're seeing the quotes from Finch and Connolly and a couple other guys is they never saw him this good ever. Even when he was in Utah, they don't think when he was the defensive player of the year because somehow they figured out exactly how to use him, which is really don't have to get creative down there, Rudy. Dunk and then run out and set a screen and keep it simple as ever could be. But again, he was banged up last year, so you just gotta. That game is so dangerous in the sense that you're always one step from missing 2 weeks. You step on somebody's foot or something like that.
I know it was the Spurs, and the Spurs are one of the worst teams in the league, so it's a big grain of salt here. But last night was one of the most efficient performances of any player in the league this season. When you start to look, so Gobert played 30 minutes. He scored 16 points on 8 shots. So we're just talking efficiency, right?
3 fouls early.
And and it included the 3 fouls in the first 10 minutes of the game, right? So 16 points on 8 shots, 20 rebounds in 30 minutes. He had the 2 blocks, 2 assists, and he was a plus 31 in the 30 minutes he was on the court.
Yeah, I saw plus 31. I know that stat can be a little distorted once in a while.
Sure.
When you're plus 31, you had a good night. No matter who you know, there's nothing you could do, nothing you can say in bad mouth. And a lot of that time spent with the guy who's supposed to be the future of basketball, the 7'5" guy, right? So
Wemby. Wemby was a tough night for Wemby.
Wemby's proving that even if you look phenomenal playing in France or someplace, there's a learning curve here, especially when you're surrounded by a bad team. So that's something. But it's astounding. Now the schedule gets tougher here. What do they got? I saw some stat.
I got Memphis first, and then it gets tougher.
Yep.
15 of the next 16 games are against teams that are over 500. So
they'll get go beat Memphis on Friday, and then it gets weird after that.
Okay, where are they in the league as far as your guys' belief that among the best teams, top 5 or 6 in the league?
Yeah, what do you say? Joe? What do you think?
Yeah, top 5. They're top 5 right now.
Boston,
they are definitively top 5.
You know what? Here's the difference. Last night they're playing like crap. I never thought they would actually lose.
No, I didn't either. That is. But we all say, "Oh, this is a game they would have lost last year or the year before." Well, 2 years ago they won 46 games. Last year they won 44 games or something like that. 44 games. So they won games like that. They didn't always lose games like this. They lost a few of them, but this is a game they would have lost. Well, maybe not.
But the bad team stat, Pat, that Phil has, that's the thing. Yeah. Last year, they played down to their opponents, and they couldn't come back. Last night, I thought, third quarter, they'll be fine, and they were.
That's the thing, Pat. So last year they were. I mean, you're right. They're not. Sometimes we go over the top and say like every game that looks like that.
Every game like this they could have lost.
But they were against below 500 teams last year. They were 17-18.
Yes.
If you look at some of the other teams in the league, so like Sacramento was 26-8 against bad teams. Memphis was 27-8 against bad teams. In the Eastern Conference, the Cavaliers, who weren't even they were a playoff team, but they weren't a contender. They were 30-5 against below 500 teams.
Yeah.
So you can say safely the Wolves lost probably, compared to the other contenders, 10 or more games more against the worst teams last year than they should have.
And the coach agrees with you that, what did he say all summer and into the start of the practice for the fall? We got to get more maturity. Right. In other words, show up. Here's what's incredible, though. They are not resting guys. They are, if you're healthy that night, you play.
And Ant probably should not have played last night. He was limping around. He's grabbing his hip, but it's, all right, it's Wolves culture, Pat. Wolves culture. You play.
Well, it's a culture in the sense that, that it was all up to him last night. They weren't saying, you get out there and play. And he's a guy that likes to play, so let him play. And, a year ago we had, I don't think, you think this year with the approach you see from everybody that Cat would have missed 50 games or 60 games with a bad calf? I don't think anybody was in a big hurry to come back last year. They were trying to grow into each other. I think Cat was. What, you go and trade for a 7-footer, and now you want me to learn how to play basketball over again? What the hell are you doing? He was as confused by it as the rest of us, I'm sure.
It does feel like everything, and even like I mean, think about just the swapping of D'Lo, who's just a petulant child of a basketball player, for Mike Conley, who's the consummate professional. Like that swap. It does feel like, it sounds cliche though. It does sound like all these guys just like being around each other more than they did maybe a year ago. And Gobert, I think Gobert is a personality you have to sort of warm up to over time. Gobert doesn't come into a room and, have the magnetic personality that Anthony Edwards might have.
Well, I don't think he has the American, the U.S. thing up here, because he was making jokes about COVID and stuff, and then the next day he had COVID.
But he wasn't doing it in like the Aaron Rodgers way, where he was
doing
smugly.
it like he was doing it in the French goofball way that some of that stuff doesn't work around here, sometimes someplace. But the fact of the matter is, we were. Me more than anybody in October was saying, listen, these guys are going to trade Cat at the trading deadline this year. This is not going to work. This is Cat's going to go into him and say, I don't want to be here. And I would say that was only inaccurate by 180 degrees. So at this
Pat,
point,
this has become a perfect situation for Cat, because he can kind of. No one's looking at him and saying, hey, we need you to save the franchise like 5 or 6 years ago. They're looking at him as, okay, Rudy's got the defensive. He's the anchor on defense. Anthony Edwards is the personality and the face of the franchise and the offense. Conley's here as a leader. Kyle Anderson's here as a leader. So just go do your thing and find a fit. And there's not much pressure on him to sort of shoulder the whole thing.
And I think we also, because of ESPN talk shows and Stephen A. Smith and other morons, we have to say, whose team is this? I've gone on this rant before. Well, if Michael Jordan's on a team, it's his team. And if LeBron James is on a team, it's his team. And if Luka Doncic, obviously, that's his team. But in Giannis, that's his team. But we don't have to worry about that here.
It's Naz Reid's team, actually.
It's everybody's team. It's Naz.
It's Troy Brown's team.
Nas had a couple 3 weeks when I wasn't doing much, but he's back in. He's back
good last night.
Again.
He was great last night.
Good last night.
It's I don't know. I got a little mean on Twitter to the one guy that texted you and says, "Yeah, I've been watching them or tweeted you. I've been watching them for the first time this year. Why should I be impressed?" We don't give a bleep if you are or not. But here's how you can get
impress me.
Here, I can impress you. 16-4.
Right.
Yeah.
It
reminds me of, as I told you guys a few times, that when they all the twins from the late 90s there were attacking me one day in the middle, there was 5 or 6 of them yelling at me. And they said, Kevin, write this. And I said, look at the standings. I kept saying, look at the standings. That was my defense, In this case, if you want to be excited about the Wolves, all you got to do is look at the standings. Don't look at 24 minutes of the first half.
Yeah.
It's the NBA. And as Judd said, you watched them last night and you say, well, they aren't very good. But when push comes to shove, they're going to win the game. Just like the previous game. They were not in
Charlotte.
Charlotte, they weren't that good either. But, some nights you aren't making shots, and but if you can grind out a win, who cares? So,
amen.
Anyway.
Hey, speaking of hoops, how about that Gopher basketball? How about that plucky effort at the bar last night?
You all bailed at halftime.
No, they actually bailed before if you saw the attendance, they bailed before the game started.
I watched something else and turned it. I was actually in an exchange with a Gopher SID type about something, and I said, poor Ben, he can't get a break, because Dawson Garcia, and he says, they just went ahead. I said, what? And I turned it on. But you know what I like? I like those two guys, Payne and Ola Joseph.
Yeah.
Because one of them's from Park High, the other's from Park Center. And those guys, when they go down low, they got bad ideas on there. They are mean SOBs. Now, Dawson's their big scorer, but those two guys, they will run through a wall type of guys, and Payne and Ola Joseph, and Hummel's pretty good. I think Hummel's pretty good as a commentator. The delivery might not be great, but he says smart things.
He's awesome.
And he was talking about, Ola Joseph, how does he not have 12 rebounds? Because he's down there knocking people out of the way and doing stuff. So, boy, did they need that, because Garcia gets hurt. And I told you guys, Nebraska's terrible. And because I watched them against Creighton, and they were, Creighton's good, but they still were terrible. And when you get down 17 to them at home, wow. Was anybody there last night? I wasn't at the game, so I don't know.
I saw Nadine was there, and that's all I saw. Our gal.
No, I just wondered what they actually had in for the crowd.
It didn't look great.
Huh?
It didn't look great from the Babu pictures I saw documenting the experience. It didn't look too good.
Well, they're not gonna go to the tournament or anything, but they're not as hopeless as they were last year. They got the first year they got a bunch of guys from Vermont and stuff, transfers, who were 24 years old and stole a couple of games early. But they need guards is what they need. They're okay down low if Garcia's okay, but they need guards. And hopefully he'll win enough games to save his job. I don't know if they'll run them out or not. But
I think we hang a banner for "We're not as hopeless as you thought we were going to be." I think we're
bad,
raised that one up hopeless. To the rafters. Yeah.
No, that's it. But hey, you got to win. They got to win. Otherwise, those early Big Ten games, you got to look at that 0-2 for a long time. You got a month to look at where you're already 0-2 in the Big Ten. So it's nice to have one before you have to wait a long. And now they wade through a bunch of months and then go. By the way, I got another thing. It's hard to explain why I was looking at this, but I was looking at the Gopher hockey schedule.
Yeah.
They don't play a home game, Judd, because of the big break and everything, from November 26th, which was last week ago, till January. This big break they take this year, it's a month. What are they doing? What a bunch of morons.
Just because of finals and stuff, or like what is
No, it's because they got to push back.
They take a break.
They got to push back the NCAA tournament, so they wait forever. But they take this big because they start so damn early.
St. Thomas is the same way too. Because we run their games on 1500 ESPN. It's like they don't play for like 3 weeks.
The men take like 3.5.
Just
weeks
tweeted
off.
that the Michigan Wolverine hockey team's taking like 41 days between games.
Is that right?
Yeah,
it's 2 seasons.
They're gonna be rusty. They're gonna be rusty.
Taking huge breaks.
Anyway, okay, so here's my Dobbs is starting, and O'Connell, he could have told us that Monday, but there wasn't like 2 days of rabid speculation. If he came out Wednesday and didn't tell us who, then you could have had the days of rabid, Purple Daily could have been speculating on that for the rest of the week, right? Who's going to start?
We've moved on to speculating about Brian Flores' future, actually.
Yes.
There's plenty of other things to speculate, right?
But one of my favorite dead agreed moments, right? I've talked about this in the past, though. They're in Detroit in '99, and Randall Cunningham, the MVP in a couple of polls the previous year. He didn't win the official MVP, but a couple of people named him Player of the Year, is not playing well. And he pulls him at halftime and brings in Jeff George. Or I don't know if it was halftime, but at some point in the game, he brings in Jeff George. And we're waiting for that elevator in the Silverdome and rubbing our hands together and saying, we're going to be able to drive Denny crazy all week asking him who the quarterback's going to be. This will be so much. I'm going to have to go out there 2 extra days just to say, have you made up your mind about the quarterback, Denny? We're all saying, we're going to get him now. And then he walks in and says, Jeff George will be my starting quarterback next week. You screwed us again, Denny.
That's because Cunningham pulled himself.
Yeah.
He was pissed.
Yeah.
Cunningham had said, I can't play. Screw it. Forget me.
Yeah, but he came in. We thought for sure it would be a whole week of rabid speculation because Denny didn't like to give you any information. He would have been a good hockey coach. But he walks right in and it's like, he knew we were all sitting there like vultures waiting to do it.
You know what, though? O'Connell is smart enough to know that when you're dealing with a couple of backup QBs, it doesn't matter. This was Childress' favorite thing. Am I going to start Bollinger or Holcomb? Brad, it doesn't matter. You can start anyone you want. It doesn't. So at least in this case, because I love the whole thing. Well, if we kept this a secret between Dobbs and Mullins, the Raiders aren't going to know what type of quarterback to prepare for. It doesn't matter.
I love Childress thinking too, like, maybe they'll spend the whole week preparing for Holcomb, and then we'll switch it up and put Bollinger in.
Did Kelly Holcomb did start once for him, right?
He started like two or was it a couple games? I thought.
Yeah, but he started in Kansas City.
He once had a 400-yard playoff passing game, didn't he, with the Browns? Kelly Holcomb.
Yeah, against the Steelers, I think.
Anyway, Danny was too smart for us that time, and many other times. I remember once he got off he gave us some ultra triple talk BS, and he's walking down. This was a road game too, and I'm standing there, and one of his security guys said, "You got him that time, Denny." And he said, if I ever stop bleeping with him, let me know. We thought we were bleeping with Denny, but Denny was bleeping with us. So
he got you, man. So, Pat, we gotta go bleep with Doogie here for a little scoop session. So we can talk more Vikings tomorrow and preview the path ahead with you.
And I see that everybody has now picked up on what we were talking about the other day. This regional TV stuff is made for a very soft. Now the Yankees, there's about 10 teams that are going to be spending money again in baseball. But the Kelenic, when you threw Kelenic into that Seattle trade to get rid of salary, you knew that this just isn't a twin problem in baseball. Oh, no. This is a big problem in baseball. So,
yep, it's half the league. Yep.
All right.
All right, Pat. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Reusse Unchained, presented by Zero Res. So make sure that your home is ready for the holidays. Make sure your stinky carpets are no longer stinky. Your just in general, make sure that your house is presentable for friends and family here this holiday season. I love a clean house personally. It gives me peace and calm. There's no better way to deep clean your house and your carpets than with Zero Res. And in fact, if you call Zero Res or go to the website today at 952-ZERO-RES or ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the Score North special, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $129. 3 rooms Zero Resified for $129 when you say you want the Score North special, ZeroResMinnesota.com or 952-ZERO-RES. Spell it forward or backwards, it spells the same, Zero Res.